Here is a mix where every sound is technically present, but nothing feels important. The vocal is fighting the guitars. The kick and bass blur into one long, low note. The percussion is wide, yet the whole picture still feels small. Now imagine the exact same recordings after a few deliberate balance decisions. No replacement samples, no miracle plug-in, just clearer relationships. That is what balance really means. It is not making every track equally loud. It is deciding what should lead, what should support, where each sound belongs, and how those priorities change as the song moves. In this video, we will build that balance with 10 practical techniques, and we will replace a few popular internet rules with something more useful, decisions you can trust in your own session. Tip 1 is gain staging, but the goal is headroom, not obedience to one magic number. You have probably heard that every track should hit -18 dBFS. That number can be useful when you are talking about average level into analog-modeled plugins, because many of them are calibrated around a nominal operating point. But it is not a universal peak target. A snare with sharp transients and a sustained pad can show very different peaks while having a similar average level. Start by making sure the master is not clipping and that buses and plugins are not being driven harder than you intend. If a compressor, tape emulation, or saturator changes character when you raise its input, treat that drive as a creative choice. Use clip gain or input trim to give yourself room, then use the channel fader for the musical balance. Healthy level is a range, not a ritual. Tip 2. Build a static mix before you start fixing things. Pull the faders down. Choose the emotional anchor of the song. In many productions, that is the lead vocal, but it might be the drums, a bass line, or one unforgettable instrument. Bring that anchor up to a comfortable level, then add the next most important element. Keep going until the whole arrangement is playing. Do this at a modest monitoring level. When the speakers are not flattering you with sheer loudness, the hierarchy becomes easier to hear. Ask simple questions. Can I follow the lyric? Does the groove feel solid? Is one texture stealing attention from the hook? Do not be surprised if the first real solution is one fader moving down. Plugins cannot rescue an arrangement in which every part is demanding the foreground. A strong static balance gives every later EQ and compression move a reason. Tip 3. Filter with a reason. A high-pass filter can remove rumble, handling noise, or low-frequency build-up from a sound that does not need it. But high-passing every track at a memorized frequency can strip away body and make the full mix feel thin. A guitar is not automatically wrong below 200 Hz. A vocal does not always want the same cutoff. The arrangement, the recording, and the desired tone decide. Solo can help you identify a noise or resonance. Make the final decision while the mix is playing. Raise the cutoff until you hear the sound lose useful weight, then back away. Try a gentler slope if the transition feels disconnected. The point is not to make every channel look tidy on an analyzer. The point is to remove energy that is actually masking something more important. If the low end is already clean, leave it alone. Tip 4. Give the kick and bass different jobs. First, listen to the arrangement. Which element carries the deepest sustained note? Which one provides the short rhythmic impact? In some songs, the bass owns the sub, and the kick lives a little higher. In others, a deep kick anchors the bottom, while the bass speaks through harmonics and movement. Then choose the smallest tool that solves the collision. Shorten a bass release, move a note, tune the kick. Use a gentle static EQ cut if one narrow area is truly crowded. Use dynamic EQ or sidechain compression when the conflict happens only at the moment the kick lands. Do not automatically cut the bass at the kick's loudest frequency. Those fundamentals may be part of both sounds' identity. The cleanest low end often comes from envelope and arrangement decisions before it comes from a dramatic EQ curve. You want two parts that cooperate, not two parts that have been hollowed out. Tip 5. Protect the mid-range priority. Vocals, guitars, keys, synths, and snare detail can all compete in the area where our hearing is especially sensitive. That does not mean every competing track needs a 2 decibel cut at the same frequency. It means you need to decide which element should be understood right now. Play the full mix and identify the phrase or tone that is being masked. Lower a competing fader first. If the problem remains, use a broad, small EQ move and toggle it in and out. You may find the conflict near 2 to 4 kHz, but you may also find it lower or higher depending on the source. Think of a conversation. Clarity does not come from making everyone whisper in exactly the same band. It comes from giving the lead speaker room while the supporting voices keep their character. Tip 6. Design the stereo picture instead of following a pan recipe. Lead vocals, kicks, snares, and bass are often stable near the center because they carry the song's anchor. Complementary guitars, percussion, backing vocals, and effects can create movement around that center. But two guitars do not have to be hard left and hard right, and every shaker does not need an assigned side. Pan for contrast. If two parts perform similar rhythms, separation may help. If one part already has a wide stereo recording, adding more width can create phase trouble. Watch a correlation meter, but trust the musical image. Pay special attention to very low frequencies. Keeping the subregion controlled and mostly centered is a reliable compatibility strategy, especially for club and mono playback, but it is not a law. The real test is what survives when the channels are summed. Tip 7. Use a reference track and match its perceived loudness before you judge. Choose a professionally released song with a similar genre, arrangement density, and emotional target. Route it so your mix bus processing does not color it by accident. Then turn the reference down until it feels about as loud as your mix. If the mastered reference stays much louder, louder will usually sound better even when the balance is not. Compare one question at a time. Where does the lead vocal sit? How much low-end weight is present? How bright are the cymbals? How wide is the chorus compared with the verse? How much dynamic contrast remains? The reference is not a stencil. You are borrowing perspective, not copying a frequency curve. It helps reset your ears and shows whether your mix lives in a believable neighborhood. Tip 8. Automate the relationships. A static balance is a photograph, but a song is a moving scene. The guitar level that supports a verse may cover the vocal when the chorus opens. A bass note may leap out only once. A final word may disappear under a cymbal. Use small level rides to keep the hierarchy intact. Raise a quiet phrase. Pull a competing part back for one line. Let a hook become a little more forward when it returns. Automation can also change sends, EQ, or width, but begin with volume because it is direct and easy to judge. Good automation is often felt before it is noticed. If a move calls attention to itself, that can be a creative effect. If the goal is balance, use the smallest move that keeps the listener focused on the song. Tip 9. Check mono and check real playback. When you sum a stereo mix to mono, panning no longer separates competing parts. Frequency masking becomes obvious, and out-of-phase information can lose level or disappear. That does not mean a good stereo mix must sound identical in mono. It means the core groove, melody, and vocal should remain convincing. Listen quietly. Check headphones, your main speakers, and one limited device such as a phone or small Bluetooth speaker. You are not trying to make every system sound the same. You are checking whether the musical priority translates when bass extension, stereo width, and room acoustics change. If one sound vanishes in mono, investigate polarity, timing, widening, and stereo effects before simply turning it up. Translation is a relationship test. Tip 10. Reset your ears before you make expensive decisions. Listening fatigue changes your judgment. After a long, loud session, brightness can seem dull, low end can become harder to evaluate, and tiny problems start to feel enormous. If you are making the same adjustment back and forth, that is useful information. Your perspective may be gone. Take a short break in quiet. Come back at a lower monitoring level. Play the mix from the top without touching anything, and write down the first 3 things you notice. Compare against a saved version so you can hear whether the last hour actually helped. Finishing is also a balance skill. A mix does not improve because you touched every plugin. It improves when each decision strengthens the song. Here is the repeatable pass. Create headroom without worshipping a number. Build the static mix around the emotional anchor. Filter only when unwanted energy is masking something. Give kick and bass complementary roles. Protect the mid-range priority. Design the stereo picture and check its phase. Compare with a level-matched reference. Automate the hierarchy as the arrangement changes. Test mono and real playback. Then reset your ears before the final call. Notice what is missing from that list: a guaranteed frequency, a mandatory pan position, or a plug-in that works on every song. A professional balance is not every sound being equally loud. It is every important sound being clear at the right moment. Get those relationships right, and the processing you add later becomes simpler, faster, and far more intentional.